were building the most impressive longhouses, and many were elaborately fortified. At the Schaff site outside of Onondaga, New York, the people constructed a longhouse 400 feet long, 22 feet wide, and nearly as tall. The palisaded settlement may have housed 1,500 to 2,000 people, consisting of many different clans. As those of you who know our previous books, often this type of aggregation is a telltale sign for archaeologists of interpersonal violence. Simply put, people crowd together for defensive purposes. This is also when cannibalism first appears in the Iroquoian agricultural record in the form of cut and cooked human bones. People of the Longhouse takes place at this critical moment in time. Why did warfare break out? The fact that the climate had grown cooler and drier certainly contributed to the violence. We know that droughts were more frequent, growing seasons shorter, and food shortages probably more common. As well, larger villages deplete resources at a faster rate. Game populations, nut forests, firewood, and fertile soils would all have played out more quickly, which means they must have had to move their villages more often. Moving may have brought them into conflict with neighbors who needed the food resources just as desperately. The warfare, we know, was violent. At the Allhart site in the Oak Orchard Creek drainage in western New York, archaeologists found evidence of burned longhouses and food, and the dismembered remains of 17 people, most of them male. Historically, it was common practice for women and children to either be killed on site or taken captive and marched away while the male warriors were tortured and killed. At this site, the fragments of a child's skull were found in one storage pit and the skull of a woman in another storage pit. As well, 15 male skulls were found in a storage pit on top of charred corn and were probably placed there as severed heads in the flesh. Some of them were burned. 2 had suffered blows to the front of the head. At the Draper site northeast of Toronto, 14 burials date to this period. One burial, an old man, was missing both arms and his shoulder blades. A chert arrow point was embedded in his right hip bone, the femoral neck. There was also evidence that he had been speared in the chest and scalped. As well, he had sustained a severe blow to the left side of his head and showed cut marks from having been dismembered. Dismembering the enemy was historically a method of stopping the soul from taking revenge upon its killers. Dismemberment apparently immobilized the angry spirit of the dead. The Van Ort site, a late 14th to early 15th century site near Kitchener, Ontario, revealed 13 burials. One had fragments of 3 arrow points embedded in his bones. He also showed signs of numerous puncture wounds, which means he was stabbed several times. Then both of his arms were severed, and he was beheaded. At the Cameron site near Lima, New York, a young male burial was discovered. He'd been burned and showed signs of having been stabbed and scalped. Afterward, his skull was broken open, probably to extract the brain. The interesting thing here is that this young man was buried in the village cemetery, not in a refuse midden. This may mean that his body was found by his relatives and brought home for proper burial. As well, artifacts made from human bone are plentiful in northern Iroquoian sites that date from the late 14th through the early 16th centuries. For example, 2 skulls were found at the Parsons site in Toronto. The Parsons site was an elaborately palisaded 15th century village. The 2 skulls, one male and one female, were found in a trash pit inside the inner palisade. Many other human bone artifacts are found in similar refuse situations. Human skull pendants, or rattles, are found across Ontario and New York at the Moatfield, Winking Bull, Urine, Pound, Crawford Lake, Jarrett Lamer, Draper, Keffer, Lawson, Campbell, Clearview, Parsons, Beaton, Roebuck, Light, Salem, and Glenbrook sites. Often the skulls or skull fragments have cut marks made by stone tools that are suggestive of scalping. As you already know from earlier paragraphs, it was not a French custom brought to the New World and adopted by the tribes. Scalping